Let's start off with that number. I mean, we're looking at a 13.3% increase in sales on the prior year. And many say this is quite surprising. Did this exceed your expectation as well?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I was quite surprised at the number. I think that we also saw December come quite late, particularly on the coastal resorts, which really only started to work hard from a turnover perspective after the 26th. So it seemed to us like a lot of people delayed their holiday in December. So there was a time in December when we were quite nervous.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously things turned out to be in your favour. What drove the increase in sales, would you say? Would you say that you just strategically placed for a good sales number coming through in December? Or do you think it's a combination of the retailer, or rather the consumer, also starting to recover extensively in December?
I think it's a combination of both, and then also, of course, the fact that we have these very strong brands that are number one or two in the category in which they compete, and people will gravitate towards them. But certainly, I think that there was a little bit more consumer buoyancy in December than I thought we'd expected. And I think that because there was that buoyancy, we were very well positioned, particularly in terms of our density in shopping malls, where people gravitated to, especially because of the poor weather. And then, of course, our very strong presence on what we call transient routes, which is when people are traveling.
You also opened up 20 new restaurants during the month of December. You're also on track, as you say, to meet your target of opening 110 new restaurants in the current fiscal year. You've also been expanding your portfolio quite extensively over the last year. Tell us about your plans going forward, and whether you think a 13.3% sales increase for the month of December is perhaps sustainable going forward through the rest of the financial year.
I'd like to think so. I mean, we don't have long to go. We just got January and February left. January turnovers have surprisingly held up nicely. February is always a challenge because people really are out of pocket in February, as we find after the holiday season. But there's nothing to suggest that we shouldn't exit the year in terms of system-wide sales growth, recording double-digit numbers versus last year.
What drove the increase in sales? I mean, touching on two brands that are very well known, the likes of Wimpy and Mug and Bean, how did they contribute to the overall sales number?
Well, Wimpy is a big brand in our portfolio. In fact, we call it one of the gorilla brands in our group. And, you know, when that brand performs, I mean, it has a substantial knock-on effect in terms of how the group performs overall. And coming off a very high base from last year, I mean, Wimpy's growth on last year for December this year was of the order of 12%, which is huge in terms of size. And then, of course, another strong contributor was Mug and Bean. Mug and Bean's growth on last year was of the order of 18%. And I think that really is just a function of us doing some more clever stuff on Mug and Bean in terms of different trading formats, presence on transient routes and stuff like that.
It seems that pizza is one of the most favourite foods on the menu for consumers over the month of December. And you've shown the fact that consumers were 49% ahead of budget for the month. Do you expect this trend to continue going forward? And why do you think there's such an interest in pizza?
What we're seeing really is a significant growth in consumption per capita pizza takeoff, particularly amongst the emerged market. And the number of 49% really talks to those markets which we've segmented and isolated that particularly service that end of the market. The take-up by black consumers of pizza has been quite phenomenal. I think it's a bit of an image thing, especially a business like Debonairs Pizza, which is premium by nature. And I think the whole concept of sharing is what has attracted this market. And I think that, you know, they are fascinated by pizza as a concept, and we're seeing that absolutely in our numbers.
Kevin, also just touching on the most recent companies to join famous brands. I mean, looking at the likes of the Keg and McGinty's, looking at the pub sector, Hagen's as well. How did those companies fare? We know that you are on a path to perhaps revamp some of these well-known names as well.
Yeah, we've got ambitious plans for the category. We launched our first new look keg probably towards the end of March, which is I've seen some early signs of. It's sensational in terms of the way it looks, and you know, our category in brutal terms really is to take that particular market by the scruff of its neck and improve it in an overall sense. But Keg is just continues to show why we bought the brand. I mean, the growth for Keg year on year over December was 17%. And that's coming off a basis where there's been very little inflation. So it just goes to show you what equity lies in that brand, even though the fact that it's in need of repair.
How did the McGinty's brand fare?
A little bit slower than that in terms of traction. McGinty's grew at 9%, which is also not bad considering the fact that there was no inflation in that number. So again, it shows that, you know, there's life in that category, and certainly, as I said, we want to take that category and really relaunch it in its entirety in the near future.
Your chicken offering, Geramundo, also a company that's sort of relatively new to your portfolio. How did this company fare during the month of December? From what we're seeing, perhaps it didn't really benefit from the December sales.
No, the sites by nature are sites that would not have benefited from any increase in turnover in December. They're very rural sites, they're low profile. We've purposely done that so that we can learn all we need to learn about the trading format, about pricing, and about the product in low profile stores, and we've done that, and I'm satisfied. I think we could have done better, but satisfied, and I think there's a lot of learnings we can take out of the December performance as we roll that brand forward this year.